versus knowledge, importance of pre-hire assessments, screening for lateral hires, typical challenges faced in recruiting specialists, what solutions have you employed or what has worked and what has not, and also some first-hand accounts to probably help the community and all our audience to learn from. A little about our today. Raghavendra has over 28 years of experience in the HR domain. He currently holds office as Vice President and Head HRD and is in the Executive Council of Infosys BPO. His expertise lies in HR's functional role to dovetail business plans. His areas of interest are development of HR competencies, managing and cultural diversity, change management, especially in the context of mergers and acquisitions. The partner for today's webinar, helping us making this program, is Metal. It is an online assessment and platform to measure, analyze, and improve people skills. It is ideal for companies who want to run multi-competency assessments for their prospective hires or existing employees. They focus deeply on the science of things and combine it with advanced technology to deliver highly valid and reliable tests. For more details around them, you could probably visit metal.com. We have saved some time for you to ask your questions at the end of the webinar. For those watching the webinar live, you can submit questions at any point in time during the presentation through the Q&A section on your screen. We will try to respond to as many questions as time permits. We have a full lineup of an exciting for the webinar today. Without any further delay, I'm going to hand over the webinar microphone to Raghavendra. Over to you, Raghav.
Thanks, Puneet, and good morning to all who are in this webinar. Good to be here, great to share experiences, and also learn from the people. Because ultimately today, all HR professionals and more so the talent acquisition folks, I think are on a constant challenge in terms of the right person through the door. And not only the challenge is to get the right person through the door, but also that person would need to join, contribute, develop, and grow. So the ROI, the investments done, the person coming through the door, needs to be absolutely bang on. We normally hear a business saying that the sales folks are the most harried. Ask a professional who's been in the system for more than 28 years, and all my gray hair, 80 is on account of getting the right talent through the door. Because my boss currently tells me, get me the people, I'll get you the business, not the other way around. So therefore, folks, today it becomes that much more critical for each one of us to see that the energy and the effort spent in getting talent through the door becomes that much more important, that much more critical, and is the most critical success factor for any business to thrive and grow. Because I can draw a parallel in what it was in the past. In the past, we had great wars fought on of land, property, riches, wealth, and all of that. Today, all business wars start with getting of talent. So it becomes that much more critical for us to look at what is it we need to do to take it forward. If you look at what I will be doing, I will be going through the PPT and allude or refer to that. I would request you all to make questions, send it through the chat box to the organizers, and at the end of the presentation, I would be answering as many questions as well as time permits. I'm also available to post the call by way of a mail, or in case you believe that I need to clarify or share some perspective on the questions which have remained unanswered. The more I see in terms of what it is, in terms of getting it, tests, assessments, and all of that, ultimately, as Lauren Fossey says, we need to bet on people and not on strategies. And that for us is extremely critical in terms of how we need to look at it. It is said that in India, is in a very good place to be in compared to rest of the world because of demographic dividends. Today we have more than 5 million graduates passing out every year. But our challenge can be in terms of how is it we need to get the workforce into the corporate, into different organizations. Because you talk to anyone on the floor, they say that more than 70% of people are not employed. And therefore, for us, our challenge is what is it we need to do? Especially when the demand for talent is so high, despite the so-called talent availability, 9 million plus graduates passing out year after year. Every sector faces the challenge of wanting a ready-made product or a ready-made person to start working from day one and to hit the ground running. So what is it we do in terms of the things and in terms of assessments, in terms of selection criteria, in terms of working backwards to get the right talent through the door? While the topic focuses on lateral skills, the challenge is just not in terms of the talent at levels, but even at the entry level. But to get into that reference, people on call and all recruiters in the talent function need to first equip themselves in terms of how and what they would need to do, in terms of understanding to get the right people through the door, experienced or otherwise entry. At the outset, I would strongly urge each one of us on this call to see that they have a very, very strong recruitment team with the fit, the right capabilities. And there are a host of things we as HR folks in the talent function need to focus on. That is in terms of being a strong brand, looking at what the recruiter has to do in terms of ensuring that we are talent magnets. We need to train others in terms of developing skills with respect to how they would need to assess human capital better, look at the options and understand the big picture, because the cost of replacement of an employee is much higher, and therefore the handshake between the recruitment and the talent acquisition team and other parts of the organization and the HR function too becomes critical. And therefore, the entire basis for ensuring right talent, including lateral, is built on recruitment team in terms of building their own capabilities, looking at what is it that we need, building ultimate talent pool, focus on what is now the biggest trend, the use of the social media. Excite passive folks who are actually maybe not very active in the market. Actually, you're more experienced than lateral folks in terms of what and how is it you do to get them into your organization. The recruiter today in the past probably was more in terms of, in addition to bringing people on, would give a set of data, more MIS. He or she needs to focus and start looking at big data into analytics, and then bring in a sense predictability to the folks, and so that the right person comes in to the organization. What therefore one needs to do is to look at how a hiring person, the talent acquisition professional, would need to do to look at getting the folks on. When we talk of assessment, whether it is at entry or at lateral levels, he or she needs to know technical skills that is required to get the person on board, and also look at the behavioral competencies so that right talent comes through the door. And for this, basics is very, very important. While all of us in our B schools will understand, will know what knowledge, skills, ability, attitude, and all of that. But the science behind understanding in terms of why it is so important, and actually not be or provide stick solutions, or look at it saying the need is very high because the business is on lookout for people. I need to fill a position, and look at it more in terms of an output of filling a role rather than the outcome of getting the right talent to come in. And therefore, his or her ability to handshake, to understand the picture, look at career architecture in the organization. Is your OD team and business, have they worked together in designing the career architecture, the organization structures? Have the role being defined appropriately, and have the skill sets been actually are in line, tune with the needs of the business and what the role needs to deliver? And therefore, as I spoke in the previous slide, the ability and need of the recruiter to be qualified, certified to actually add skills, attitude, and the competencies that he would need to have, so that he is in a better position to get the right talent through doors. So the preparations, the training, the certifications of the recruiter in the talent acquisition function becomes that much more critical, so that he actually understands what is technical skills and what is behavioral skills. And therefore, when I use the word domain, it could also be technical, it could also be functional. And when we talk of building in excellence, we need to understand what each role would need to do in terms of delivery. And therefore, whether it is generic, whether it is specialist, whether it is niche, and more importantly, whether it is relevant to the job. There is always a tendency of the hiring manager, particular department or function, to get carried away with qualifications, with some swank competence the person would bring to the table. But is it relevant to the job is critical. And therefore, one assesses what needs to be done, the type of it that needs to come through the door. He or she needs to be absolutely clear in terms of, while building assessments, while looking at getting the right candidate at the door, are we building in all of this as part of the role that becomes critical? We need, for example, when you're talking of lateral hiring, should we look at a technical expert? Are we looking at a subject matter expert? Are we looking at a manager or a leader? And not just in management, or not just in terms of project planning. The focus when we talk of domain skills is that he or she needs to actually understand the depth a person needs to get into the role. And therefore, from a hiring person, even the hiring manager or the recruiter would need to constantly up his own knowledge and skills in terms of identifying the right parameters for selection. I have a case at the end of my presentation, which is about how we've actually gone about building assessment, selection filters for a person to come in, especially with experience, to do this. Further, the need to look at competency-based hiring, and are we looking at objective data points for selection? Objective assessment actually, in my view, complement information obtained come in resumes, and would give a more complete picture of who your potential hires could be and how they will fit into your work environment. So therefore, one should look at any assessments in tandem, in combination, so that when we talk of a personality-led hiring, we also need to gain insight about the person's true nature. Assessments, in my view, can reveal certain aspects that are easy to miss in an interview. Because if a person has got the gift, the gap, normally there is a tendency to enamored by the fizz that person brings to the table. But and therefore it becomes critical that tests or assessments need to take into account those aspects, the dimensions, which will actually help you make the right choice. As when you are assessment in tools, it helps you also to sift out unsuitable candidates at an early stage. And you can get a number of tests which are easily available. The risk you run of picking off-the-shelf assessment tests or tools is that they are mass-produced. And therefore, as a function, you need to actually calibrate it, work with your supplier or your own experience and calibrate your assessments so that get the right fit. And that's how, in my view, it will help us to make a better choice. One also has to look at what is the job assessment. Therefore, continuously, what we do is in terms of we get a standard profile in the organization and run some of them which we use as an external candidate with some of our good to great performers and see how they actually come up on the radar in terms of getting the right fit. You have a profile in terms of the person that you would need to get in to the organization. What we do, as I told you, I said that I will talk about a case where we have looked at a particular skill set where we would want to get people through the door. And it is important when talking of making assessments. First, the need is to understand what our organization does, what are the expectations, what are the jobs, responsibilities and deliverables of the person who is managing this position or role becomes critical. And then we looked at how we need to, the type of experience the person would need to come with, and the processes involved so that the person who comes on board actually meets the requirements. In the past, we said that we suppose we wanted a sourcing and procurement person. We would just look at irrespective of the industry because the domain is sourcing and procurement. And irrespective of the industry, we looked at certain parameters, had a tick box, got a functional expert. From a functional perspective, only brought the person on board. But then when we realized that we are talking of an agricultural sector, person in the agricultural machinery sector, whereas a sourcing person can be from the confectionery industry, can be in the hotel industry, can be even from the IT industry. And therefore it becomes much more critical that we delve a lot more deeper in getting people on board and look at the industry, organization, the role, the deliverables, and then take that forward. And therefore, in my view, we need to first understand the requirements of the job from a client perspective and our own requirements in terms of look at the market in terms of available people, similar industries, where are the people from where we can actually source people, target it. Don't, especially in lateral hires, just a wide advertisement would not help us. We need to have a targeted pools, and therefore the market becomes much more very clear. And then set expectations with the candidate, but more important, internally, from the hiring manager's perspective, so that he or she is clearly aware the type of resource that can be brought onto the floor. And periodically it becomes that much more critical that once you design an assessment is not the end. In our organization, we continuous review in terms of the sourcing, selection, continuance and delivery of the person is in line with what has been researched. Because while many do a lot of this, what we fail to realize is in terms of the actual performance and our ability to retain and grow are things which we would not have looked in the past. Today we do all of that and then revisit our assessment methodology to get people through the door. From a behavioral perspective, we use a combination of organization tools and also use our own experience and understanding when we look at selection. We've used DDI, we've used SHL, we've used Mercer, and all of that. And we've also used a person, a doctor in psychology and assessments also to calibrate some of the tools which are there and look at our own experiences. And he too has helped in design our own assessments and has also assessed us. So it depends upon a combination of factors when we look at what is it we need to use for different roles. Because org structure too, and when we drop the career architecture in the organization, it's not static. Every 2 to 3 years, the architecture is revisited, and based on the competence skills, the specific requirements, we look at what has given results in the past. We have a lot of people also approaching us in terms of what is it we need to do, how is it we need to handle that, and take it forward. What I mentioned, the OPQ, which for us is pretty important, is the occupational personality questionnaire. It is the way it's designed is it provides us with information on aspects of individual behavioral styles that impacts performance. Then we have looked at things like the performance profiling with the DISC, which has helped us to get the right person. Also, it is used for promotion from within the organization. One should not forget, when we talk of lateral hiring, huge talent pool that is available from within the organization. And we normally tend to forget that. I remember it only during the promotion cycle, which may be once a year. Today, as an organization, we have taken it upon ourselves in the HR team and at the leadership level to at least have 70% of growth or all lateral positions to come from within. And therefore, our big advantage as an organization is that when I mentioned all personality-led testing, we've used a combination of this and has helped us actually adapt it when we need to look at people from outside. So for us, I would look at it as the STAR approach, which looks at situation, tasks, actions, and results, is another variant. And for us, the way I would it is that there is no one size fits all. I think each one of us and all of you should look at what is relevant for your organization, and not just what is being recommended by an expert. Because solution providers come up with the best test into what their product, tool, or assessment methodology will do for the organization. I would strongly urge each one of you to first understand your own need, your own requirement, and then pilot it with a few positions, roles, both internally and externally, and then look at it. And that's not the be-all, end-all of it. Periodically review it. As I told you, in terms of how the person has actually fitted into the role, what is his domain or functional or technical expertise, whether the behavioral competency is in line with what the role demands, whether that person is able to contribute, deliver, grow, and also continue in the organization. It's a combination of all of this that becomes very, very, very critical. As I told you, for us, job posting, promotion panels, which we do regularly I think is a great source for us to continuously experiment. And large organizations like ours, I think, have the advantage because last year, out of a total of about 14,000 people whom we've hired, close to 2,500 people were from the lateral pool. So to that extent, we have probably the liberty, I can say, to also experiment, innovate, and take it on from there in terms of how and what we need to do. To do that, we also get building the internal talent pool for us is a very, very critical aspect of lateral hiring. We have got in higher education programs which add some competencies in terms of knowledge. We look at different bands, levels, positions across the organization. And since we are also a global organization having 24 centers outside of India, it gives us some amount of leeway to actually experiment some amount in terms of projects to take it forward. But ultimately, it is supposed to be soft, qualitative function, but believe me, recruitment is actually a sales job. Recruitment is also like a branding and a marketing job. One needs to understand what are those functions or departments or professionals doing there to get greater eyeballs into the organization, wanting to do or start a career or build a career organization, and the recruiter needs to be aware of that. Unlike mass hiring, especially levels, people at lateral leadership levels are normally not mine unless he or she is desperate for some requirements or either better compensation or role or position. My belief is most professionals want to build careers, and therefore, as long as existing organization looks at wanting to provide them the opportunity to go, it is fine. And therefore, the recruiter needs to do and build a huge talent bank of this experience pool and look at what is it we need to do. They need to go beyond Facebook, beyond social media to get people through the door, and therefore it becomes critical for us to look what needs to be done. As I told you, we look at different aspects. For us, the internal positioning of tests at assessment centers actually becomes the nursery when we want to do something with external candidates, and all of this is done accordingly. And like what I said in the first slide, it is just not assessment, but a person who needs to do the job. Similarly, it is just a more scientific approach, but how you position yourself as an organization, as a brand, which then will become a talent magnet. So the entire talent acquisition process, in my view, should not be seen in isolation, but needs to be built in within the parameters of linkages, of handshakes, of interconnectivity and dependencies. And only then, using assessments will be successful. Otherwise, we are just having one more tick box to get in science to what we do, but may not give you the desired results. I think my moderator is saying it's 30 minutes is up. So let me stop my talk here. In case there are questions which will come up, I am willing to answer, and then we'll take it on from there. Otherwise, me just talking can sometimes there will be an attention deficit. Thank you. Puneet?
Yes. Thank you much, Raghavin, for such an interesting session. It is now time for a small dialogue conversation between Raghavendra and Ketan, co-founder and CEO. Ketan is an engineer from Turkey and MBA from IIM, Kolkata. Before co-founding Lateral, Ketan was responsible for marketing at iFango, a startup which is today one of the world's largest collection of tours, trips, and activities. He was also instrumental in setting up the ecosystem for India's first mobile payment and transaction platform at in the paid networks. I now hand it over to him for the dialogue conversation between the two of you. Over to you, Ketan.
Thanks, Puneet. Raghavendra, thanks for the very insightful presentation. And what we are trying to do at Metal actually syncs up with what you have spoken as well. But actually, based on your experience, I would like to know, probably delve deeper into a few couple of areas. You mentioned about, let's say, ROI of doing any activity. So could you share with us what are the main factors that you consider, let's say, before investing in a product or solution? Is there any real wow factor that you see, or what are the kind of, let's say, analysis that goes in, and is it something which is very rigorous, or is it something more subjective? So it'd be good if you can throw some light on the details of ROI.
Yeah, I think it's a very right, appropriate question, because ultimately anything which we propose will be seen as a cost and an investment. It has to be efficient, it has to be effective, and give the right results. And therefore, when we look at any solution, the first and foremost is its compatibility and appropriate with the in-house recruitment platform, the in-house recruitment requirements. So is meeting that need is what we look at. Second is in terms of we look at, does the tool provide us data, MIS, trends, analysis that generate required pointers for us to go for that solution. Very important for us, especially when we work in across the globe, and the need to comply with law becomes critical. Whether while doing this assessment, does it take into account the need not intruding on personal space, compliant with the law of the land, and therefore the questions and assessments need to take that into account. And obviously, most of us in HR are supposed to be technologically challenged. So the ease of use, the tool becomes critical. That's at one end. The second we look at in terms on actual ROI in terms of the dollar or the cost rupees spent, because for large organizations where the volumes are high, what is always asked is that what is it today you spend in terms of getting a candidate right from the time of sourcing till selection and personnel. The cost per assessment will be a key factor in addition to the implementation time. Because I may be working, say, a platform, SAP, or some customized platform of the organization, and have to have linkages right through the employee life cycle. And therefore, does it that requirement. And the wow, I think, ultimately the proof of pudding is meeting. I may have the most advanced, scientifically tested tool or platform, but a person doesn't deliver on the floor. It doesn't make any sense. And in an enabling function, recruitment is seen as hygiene. Absence of the right candidate will make more noise than getting the right person through the door. I think that is what we all look for when we take a decision in terms of the ROI for getting into a particular assessment tool or platform. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes. I think this was very, very insightful. I think I just have probably a follow-up question here. Let's say you mentioned hygiene, you mentioned cost spent, but is there some linkage in terms of the value that is being added? Let's say the KRAs that are being affected and the corresponding business value or top line effects that are being generated. Let's say the time to hire that is getting reduced, the time to deployment that might be getting reduced, the cost per hire, or the quality and effectiveness of people that are being hired. So is there linkages when you think about ROI? Are those linkages also something that you kind of look at, or is it something more that based on experience and maybe post analysis that you do, okay, this is what we have saved?
I think all of our key deliverables when we look at these aspects, I think the most important is the quality of hire. That we've got the right fit, the right person coming through the, and the tool or the platform or the assessment for us needs to enable us to get the Mr. James Bond, if I may say so, closest to the right fit for the role. And therefore, it needs to be comprehensive, needs to be customized, which you look at evaluations both on domain and cognitive skills. I think that is the first thing we look at, which will be linked to our the KRA which you are talking about. The second thing which we will look is the analytics this tool will generate, which will also help us source in the future, will give us trends, and will give us a sense of stability, and then take it on from there. And obviously, the third, always I have recruiters and even hiring managers who are recruiters, and we've asked them to go through a particular tool or a process. As I told you, that it's to be easy to use, both for the recruiters and for the candidates who undergo the process. I think these are some things which because as an organization, especially for these roles, we also ask of the hiring experience, both from the hiring manager and from the recruiter and candidate herself. And I think all this play a role for us, and these are actually evaluated when we get ourselves assessed at the end of the year.
Okay. I have one last question, Raghavendra. So, based on your years of experience, you would have seen this industry evolve. What is the next 5 year view? What does the future look like? I mean, and let's say how should HR managing themselves to be ready for it? Also, is there any wish list or innovation you think should be there, which is currently not there, in your view?
See, it's a very tricky question. When the customer is the king, the way I would look at it is for a one size fit all definitely will not work. And in my view, the future is all customization. And for me, that is very, very critical. And the organizations will look at mass customization. That will become the key. So, the tool, while will give us standardized output, will give us predictable results. For us, what becomes key is that our ability to identify the base minimum required skills across the board, while not forego environment of specialist skills requirements. So, customization and mass customization, I think, is something which more and more end users is what they will go to ask. It is true not only from a hiring tool or a platform, any of the services that are being offered across any business enabler, I think it is what is being looked at. I think gone are the days where people have standardized approaches. The way I look at things that are happening, the way things that are coming in through because of automation, red of knowledge, mobility, cloud, and all of that is actually changing the rules of the game totally. So what is the costly input which has been done at one end, or a great effort and spent in adapting and adopting a tool or a platform actually becomes redundant at very short time. And therefore, the focus is to componentize, the focus is to look at customizing. That is what increased service providers will face as a big challenge. And I know that technology is not only changing the way businesses are run and expectations are going up, but also in terms of how actually supporting providers like you too, in terms of what technology is helping you guys to be in line with what the industry wants. I think these, I thought, are the base requirements.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Raghavendra. This was really helpful. I think should help, at least definitely at Metal, people at Metal who are attending, should help them as well gain a perspective. And I'm sure the wider audience as well should gain from this. So over to you, Nate, for kind of from here.
Thank you, Ketan. Thank you, Raghav. With this, we move on we open the floor questions. And I already have some for you, Raghavendra, so I'll pop up the first question for you. Ima has asked us, how mature is India as a market in terms of using analytics, big data for hiring decisions? Raghavendra, your thoughts on this?
Yeah. I think today this is the most misunderstood word in terms of analytics, big data and all of that, because basic reporting of what is happening also is part of as analytics. But I understand it is evolving. There is some amount of maturity that is coming in. But I think with so much being spoken about big data and analytics in the next 12 to 18 months, that people really will understand what it means. The timelines could be shorter. But the way forward is that at least let people take MIs or database decisions at least, and not just go on hunches. And that will move towards looking at trends, predictability, and building pictures which will help us actually look at what is it we need to be doing. I think today LinkedIn is big in terms of using analytics. I've seen some reports which they generate. But I think we need to understand a lot more, and it is for me a great opportunity in terms of how and what is it we could do with big data. Because I'm sure all of us are exposed to how let's look at what big data is doing. Look at the Google car, for example, in the US, in California. There are about 20 such cars which are there and linked to all household appliances, banks, the swipe card and attendance employees. So a driver car leaves home at about 6 and goes through a barrier in the office. From the executive floor, the lift takes off and brings the owner down to the gate. The refrigerator at home will say that milk and beer and fruits are over, sends a message to the superstore saying so-and-so may come to pick up his stuff. That the car is sent that message. The person who gets into the car is driven to the superstore. The box of the car opens, the material is dumped into the boot of the car, and the bank account gets debited. And that is possible only because when you talk of analytics, you can go to that extreme. The use of big data, the use of cloud, all of that will come into play. But from a hiring perspective, I would say we are still in its stage of infancy, and we need to make that expose our people a lot more and make that work for us.
Right. I have Vishal Bhargava who's put up a question. According to various industry standards and results, nearly 25% lawyers already use gamification for the purpose of recruitment. Your thoughts around this?
I think gamification will replace a lot of current assessments. And we need to have a strong mechanism to use coming out of such assessments. Because with pictures, with gaming, the role of technology, if we can bring that into our day, it will make a huge difference. But I think it is my view, while some organizations, some aspects are being gamified, we've got a long distance to travel for it to become a reality. But that's the way forward.
All right. The next one, Raghav, for you is Nitin Verma. How can we leverage the rehire policy to attract ex-employees? Since most of them are already on a higher EDC at the time of leaving the company with an average 25 to 30% hike, how do you make sure that you hire and probably attract those employees who probably gone ahead and left your organizations? What's your views about the same?
There are two views in terms of rehire. I think it's a great bank or pool that's available who know our business and who know what is expected out of them, and the experience they gain from outside will actually help the organization. But I think we need to be clear in terms of the impact of getting people in. And therefore there has to be an enabling environment which will make these people come back. So what we do as an organization is be actively in touch with them in terms of the developments, in terms of the changes, in terms of the opportunities that are available. And if that person's experience outside of the organization is totally different and is to get from within the organization, I think the organization should look at it in terms of any other lateral hire. See, the caution or the care we need to take here is that if it is more of the same, then we need to ensure or look at what has been the person's record and performance and delivery in the past, and use similar processes to the person back. Because if a person wants to come back, he knows that, or should know that in the current organization she is in, it is obviously certain gaps. So there's a sense of security the person would like to come back to the same organization. So if it's more of the same, then we need to tell how the organization has strengthened and become a lot more solid, so that the person is attracted to come back. But if the person who's left has got some breakthrough skills, or exposed to breakthrough technology or work which is not available in the organization, he or she should be treated like any other hire who comes with the premium back to the organization. I think that distinction within the organization and understanding should be very, very, very clear. And therefore, it becomes that much more important and critical to ensure that you have an active connect with your ex-employees, so that you can, at any point of time, reach out to them and bring back into the organization.
I had a question here. There's always a debate on right fit for the role and best quality to hire. How does the talent acquisition team ensure that they drive the culture of hiring right fit resource for the job in the organization? Any initiatives that probably or any thoughts that you would have around this struggle?
For me, this is a bigger challenge than actually getting the numbers through the gate. Because as I told in my dialogue conversation earlier, that as managers, we go in always for the best candidate. We get carried away with his or her qualifications, experience, the gift of the gap, and believe that he or she is the best candidate to come. I'll give our own example, where you know that of the most largest employers in the country, and every person aspires to come and, if not any, spend 3 years in the organization before thinks of wanting to do more with this side of the organization. And the belief is that he or she will become Bill Gates one day. And therefore, that is their psyche, whether as an aspirant or as a manager who believes that's for the job a person would do. The requirement is someone who thinks like Steve Jobs or someone who thinks like Bill Gates. And we end up frustrating people. In fact, it actually analyzes attrition data more than better prospects, better salary. If one uses data analytics, one probes a bit more. If your HR people actually spend a bit more time with the people who are leaving us, you will realize that while officially they may better compensation career over, the fact is the job was sold to them versus the type of work they do is actually totally different. And therefore, it becomes that much more difficult to go back to hiring managers with insight and tell whether get the best candidate or the most appropriate candidate through the door. Yep.
Raghu, is typically at what grade or level would analytics be used by probably by a company like yours or in the IT sector? So this is one of the questions which has.
But why should we segment it? Because it has to be done across. You can't be selective in approach. Because as I told you, not operates in isolation. For example, you are doing a trend analysis with respect to effectiveness of a manager who's come in for the last, say, 2 years and see how they've delivered. And it could be that the data could be all over the place because you're only looking at performance parameters or output or outcome of that particular level. But the problems could be else. It could be the subordinates. It could be her bosses, which could be the problem. So we cannot look at analytics from a particular level or experience or whatever, and you should see it as part of a larger whole rather than look at it very narrowly. That's the way one should look at it, because data analyzed in isolation could give the response what you are looking for and not be actually giving the full or big correct picture. So it has to be in total. It cannot be isolation.
Right. Ashish has question here. What is most important to identify and evaluate? Is it attitude or is it aptitude?
I think we first look at attitude, because I think a person needs to have the attitude to say that I can do, I will continue to do. So for me, primarily the first check in my tick box is attitude, and then I will look at aptitude, skills, and all of that, because that can get imbibed, trained, fed in the nurturing environment. If attitude itself is thing, then there's no point getting that person on board.
Right. Anupam Dhal has a question here. What, according to you, is the role of communication in today's recruitment process?
We've already spoken about, right? So today the way I put it is that it is at its infancy, but more and more for it to be easily understood, to be operated upon, to get more effective, we can get towards the process. I think we are getting carried away. But what is it at the base level? Are we using even assessments? Are we using even tools to the way it is intended to do? One just can't leapfrog, say that I will introduce gamification if the basic building blocks are not in place. But does it and will it role? Definitely. Should it play a role? Yes. But the fact is, are blocks in place? Or are you going to take a finished product, get there and close it? And these are questions one needs to answer. There are no right or wrong answers here at this point of time. But the building blocks need to be in place before one gets carried away by what is being.
Okay, and Savio here, what are your views on cross-domain excellence within the HR function? What is Infosys doing to win cross-functional excellence?
I think it need not be in HR. HR, it is across. It's a philosophy, because the two need to go into play when we talk of cross-training people across domains. If I'm talking, if a person is specifically in HR, yes, it is necessary, it's important. But the challenge today is people want only to scratch surface, be up to date with jargon, and actually do not look at the depth, especially for an HR professional. I think three things count to make him or her successful, hot, and be seen as one who can actually make a difference. First and foremost is the understanding of the domain itself. So therefore, a person should first get into the depth of the function or the practice in which he or she is currently operating in. And this is true for people coming out from B schools, who come in as management trainees. Because of the educational pressure, they want a lot of variety at the start of the career. While there has to be a general exposure across, I think for a person to be taken seriously, I think depth of domain is important, and therefore it is extremely critical that before cross-training at length, a person needs to be sure of the current role, position, domain, practice he or she is operating in. I think there are no fixed timelines which prescribe here. I think each organization has a different ask. But the fact is, only when a person is consulted at practice and is considered to be an expert for the role he or she is playing, then I think fully and as a process, organizations should provide avenues for a person to rotate into other domains or practices within the function. Only it will be successful. But while doing this, the business context is also equally important. More often than not, HR professionals, in my view, talk so much of jargon and so much sense. Business reality is lost. And therefore, a deep understanding of the business itself becomes critical. The organization, why it takes the services, the products it comes out with, the environment they operate in, competition, its future, and how this organization and overall economy itself is growing. That exposure is equally important as a person moves across different domains within the function. But ultimately, as I told, he or she needs to walk the talk, lead by example in terms of the role he or she is playing. And that is where attitude comes in. So leading by example, walking deep domain understanding of the function or the practice he or she is in, and definitely understand the business aspects, the parameters in this industry operates in. I think all of that play a significant role when one talks of move across different practices within a. Thanks.
Okay, in the interest of time, I will pop up the last question. I have a lot more here. What we will do, people here, is we'll list those questions to Raghu separately. However, the last question for the time being, Raghu, is going to be from Paridhi. With most organizations hiring through alternative channels, especially social media, is there an industry standard to hire through social media? Or also, if you could suggest any good sourcing mix for the same.
See, the way we look at while social media is gaining currency, it's now become very, very popular. As I told you, it can't work in isolation. I think one needs to go back to basics, because we are not operating in a vacuum. With 5.5 lakh graduates passing out every year, first and foremost, are we actually influencing government, universities, academia, business organizations and bodies in terms of incorporating what is required for students to actually transition from campus to corporate? So I think it begins from there. That social media plays a very important role is goes without saying, and there's enough and more literature, material, examples, and is very trendy for people to talk and understand, and there's a lot of material there. But what we're forgetting, and why it's a source of grief for people, especially at my level, in terms of getting the right fit of organization, are people coming into the system. So are we looking at trade bodies? Are we looking at tier 2, tier 3 towns and developing talent? Are we looking at cultural, regional diversities? Are we also having enough and more looking at the employee touch points within the organization? Because ultimately, in my view, the best ambassador and vehicle for you or for anyone talent through the door is an existing employee. And therefore, how are we treating our own employees within the system and organization becomes very, very critical. Because my data tells me that my rate of retention, my rate of performance, my rate of growth is highest amongst people who have been referred in by our existing employees into the system. So these are more conventional, traditional, but very solid ground. Not discounting the fact and the use of social media, which is the way forward. But as I said, it cannot be in isolation. You have to look at multiple options, talent pools, talent banks, handhold, work partnership with government, with universities, with parents, NGOs, all of that plays very strong role. And trade bodies like FICCI, NASCOM, and all of them also play a role there. Only then it will work. Otherwise, the so-called demographic dividend is a non-starter. Thank you.
All right. With this question and answer session, we are going to wrap up today's webinar. There are more questions. We will probably take them offline. And once again, we thank you today for the webinar, and also a special thanks to Raghavendra for his time and invaluable information that he has shared with us today. I would like to thank everybody, all our webinar audience, for participating in today's presentation. We will come back to you with many more. Please do visit us at www.peoplematters.in/events for details on our upcoming events. That concludes today's webcast, and thank you so much, and have a great day ahead.
Thanks, Puneet, and tell the others who made this happen, and definitely to the audience who asked questions which had me on the edge of time. I think it was a great experience. Thank you, folks. Special thank my team too, who made it. Harshada, Sharmishta, thank you, folks, and the team at the back end which got me the relevant information and data. My talent acquisition team, my OD team, they also gave me a lot of insights into tools, the assessment process. I think that's what makes us a good team here. And thank People Matters for making this happen.
Great. Thank you so much, and we look forward to engaging with you in the future. Thank you so much, folks, for joining us.